This week on Take It Outside.
Do you guys practice ejecting? Is that something that happens or no?
No,
I mean, this is a
I don't know. I'm not a pilot.
You know, turkey and whitetail and elk, bears, elk is by far my favorite.
There's nothing more disgusting than cleaning a 250, 300-pound hog.
I've done it quite a bit. I don't mind it all that much, but
I have discovered that the most dangerous place in the world, even more dangerous than the Helmand province, is public land in Oklahoma on open.
This podcast was brought to you by Outsider. Check us out at www.outsider.com. Outsider is an outdoor lifestyle brand owned and operated by me, retired Navy SEAL Sam Mackey, and my dear friend and former NFL quarterback Jay Cutler. At Outsider, we encourage everyone to get outside and enjoy all that life has to offer. Head over to outsider.com to check out our unique patent-pending drinkware. Outsider's drinkware can be customized with your personal or business logo. Go to outsider.com, upload your logo, and we will send you visual proofs and great wholesale pricing. And don't forget, get outside and enjoy all that life has to offer. Welcome back to the Take It Outside podcast, where we talk all things outdoors and just getting outside where life happens. I'm your host, Sam Mackey, and as always, I have my co-host, Mackey and Jay Cutler. Today on Take It Outside, we're joined by Col Nick Nichols, a retired Air Force F-16 fighter pilot with 7 combat deployments and over 30 years of service. After hanging up the flight suit, he took on a new mission as president of Folds of Honor, an organization providing scholarships to the families of America's fallen and disabled service members. He's a leader, a hunter, a rancher, and a man with a deep sense of purpose. Let's get into it, Nick. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Man, thanks for having me, y'all. This was, when I got the invite for this podcast, I was looking at this. I was like, oh, my God, man, Jay Cutler, quarterback, Sam Mackey, Navy SEAL. This is going to be nothing but good.
Well, we're here to disappoint you.
Yeah, I was saying, it's not going to be that
great. Right on, Nick. So I'd like to get into it. I know your father was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, and I just wanted to, get into a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up and what that was like.
Yeah, so grew up all over the place. So I was born, I hate when people go back to when they were born, but it's kind of important. So I was born in Valdosta, Georgia, at Moody Air Force Base way back in the day. And that's where my dad was going to pilot training. So year after I was born, he went off to his first combat tour in Vietnam. Obviously left me and my mom home. I was an infant, probably 6 months old, something like that at the time. So he's back, he's flying the F-100 on his first tour, which is kind of like the cool precursor to the F-16, single seat, single engine, badass airplane. And he was mostly flying close air support. Had an absolutely heroic tour. In fact, one of his citations reads he was providing close air support for some Army guys, troops in contact, pinned down. His F-100 ended up getting shot by anti-aircraft artillery, so the airplane caught on fire. And but he stayed, made sure everybody got evac'd out of there, and ended up punching out feet wet in the ocean. But as he punched out, as fate would have it, his water and none of his flotation gear works. And while he was in the airplane, severe burns to his back, dislocated his shoulder, so he couldn't even swim. And when you're in a fighter jet and you're flying around, especially in combat, you've got a lot of gear on, probably 40, 50 pounds of gear. Maybe a Navy SEAL could swim out of that, but not a fighter pilot. And he was drowning. Army helo, which was not a rescue helo. The gunner sees him, points him out. The gunner jumps in the water, saves my dad's life.
Wow.
And there we go. The rest of the story, right? So super cool background. Privileged to be.
Sorry, Nick. Was he a pilot before the war?
So he went to the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
Straight to Air Force military pilot training. Straight into the F-100
at a high school.
Out of high school. Yep.
Okay.
A couple questions in regards to this for sure. What type of payloads did he mention that he was going out with every time, or what could the F-100 carry?
Yeah, mostly 500-pound bombs back in the day, and stuff. And when we were doing close air support, it was true back then. It was true in either Iraq or Afghanistan and stuff. So we needed something that was a little bit more tactical, right? That you could more of a scalpel than going in and obliterating 2 blocks or something like that. Especially with close air support, troops in close proximity and stuff like that. So mostly 500-pound bombs.
Got it. And ejection sheets, I'm not too familiar with them or the parachutes, but what is the main difference between the F-100 and the current platforms?
Yeah, so the current platform, I've been out for 8 years now, so I may be misspeaking a little bit, but we had the ACES 2 ejection seat, which that thing, you could literally be sitting on the ground, pull the handles, eject, you'll get a couple of swings in the chute and hit the ground. The ejection seats back in the day were not that. They were the old Martin Baker seats and stuff, which I think maybe like if anybody's, out there, any country still flying the F-14 and stuff like that, probably have those in there. Reliable seats, but not as powerful of a rocket motor to make sure you get up, away, and give yourself to get below a good chute.
Was there a tactical move that they, tried to get or encourage you guys to try to do before ejecting?
Yeah, so ejecting was one of those things where you really don't get to vote. You're just kind of like,
absolutely.
And for us in the F-16, the main thing would be, the engine goes out. You're single engine and you're way far away and stuff like that. So you really don't get to vote at that time. But obviously, back in the early days when I was doing combat missions in, southern and northern Iraq during the no-fly zone era and stuff, we get shot at by AAA and SAMs and stuff like that. But you just fly avoidance maneuvers and stuff. You're pretty good.
Do you guys practice ejecting? Is that something that happens or no?
No,
this is I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a pilot.
So what
we're just talking about ejecting a lot. So I'm just wondering if this is something that's practiced.
No, it's a great question. So you don't really practice ejecting, but what you do practice is being under the parachute, right? So when you get to pilot training, they throw you up in a parasail and stuff, and then basically cut the cord. And then you come down to land in the same type of parachute. You do that over land and over the water. You get to do that twice. And then, hey, if it ever comes along that you have to eject, you hope you remember your training from,
Oh, so this isn't something like this is last resort. This isn't something that's drilled and drilled and drilled. It's like do it a couple of times and fuck it. Let's hope this doesn't happen.
No, that's exactly right. Most of the time, because I've got a bunch of buddies who are retired Navy SEALs and stuff, and they still jump out of airplanes. They're like, Nick, why don't you come jump with us? I'm like, hell no, man. In my entire career avoiding that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll jump again. I think if one of my kids wants to, or if it's for some, great cause or something like that, I might do it. But I have no, personal desire to do it. One more question regarding this rescue as well. So obviously, the helos can't land in the water. Did they drop some sort of ladder down into them, or did they just put the skids, in the drink and let them get up, climb on?
Yeah, so they did have a penetrator on board, so they were able to drop that down. But in the meantime, the guy knew my dad could not. He could see him struggling to try to get back up, and so went down, unhooked him, brought him up, and then got him up in the helo.
That's amazing. So, how old were you when you first heard that story?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. So it was later in my adult life, and so my dad was tragically killed when I was 15 years old. So I'm one of the kids that got that knock on the door and stuff like that. So it was much later in life. Really, it wasn't directly from my dad, obviously, that I heard the story, but through some of his his fighter pilot bros and stuff that kept in touch through the years and stuff. But it really wasn't until much, much later in life. In fact, it was probably about 5 years before I retired from the military. I was talking to my mom. I was like, man, Mom, I got Dad's shadow box and all this other stuff, but where's his citations? And, after multiple moves and stuff like that, and we were overseas when my dad was killed. So stuff gets lost in the move, right? So I reached out. I was hell bent to go find these citations. So I reached out to the National Archives, got this super nice guy on the phone. I said, hey, man, here's my dad's social and stuff, whatever you can get it. And he goes, I'm on it. It was a year later, literally the day before Father's Day. I get this big manila envelope in the mail. And I knew exactly what it was. And then I was able to go through and read all my dad's citations. And obviously he was awarded a Purple Heart. as a result of that mission, and a second combat tour, Silver Star. So I was able to have all those citations. Wow. It was a lot later in life before I knew the details. And you know how fighter pilots are. They're probably same as Navy SEALs and stuff like that. The stories get bigger as the years go on and stuff like that. But I mean, these were no BS true stories. And it was really, really cool to see them on paper.
That's amazing. Now, did you always want to be a pilot growing up, or what were your aspirations as a young man?
Yeah, so ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, right? Dad was my hero. Loved going with him. Loved when he used to take me out on the flight line. There's nothing better than the smell of a flight line and stuff like that. The sounds of the jets going and, just, watching a jet, take off in full afterburner, and it just, shakes you to your soul and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't have a plan B, right? I was like, this is either going to work or nothing's going to work.
We're no plan B guys.
Yeah, we've talked about this in to exhaustion, and we're not plan B guys either. So usually if you have a plan A, no plan B, plan A is going to work out.
Yeah, and it's funny, because I'm like, people will ask, well, like, hey, you must have been really good at math and science or anything like that. I was like, no, I got a 2.75 grade point average from college from Valdosta State University in criminal justice and stuff. And I remember showing up at my first day of pilot training, right? And walk in the room, you're with the rest of the fellas and you're talking to them. It's like, everybody asks, look, where'd you go to college and all this other stuff? And they're all, well, I went to MIT and I went to the Air Force Academy and all this other stuff. And I remember going back and talking to my wife, and I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. I think I made a mistake and stuff. But one thing.
So out of high school, you went to college.
Yeah, it's high school, college, commissioned as a second lieutenant, then straight to pilot training.
Okay.
So you did ROTC in college?
Yeah, ROTC in college. Yep.
Did you get married in college too?
Married right after college. So yeah, so 22 years old right after college. And we're coming up on our 36th anniversary.
Oh, wow. Congrats. That's
Congratulations. Amazing. Yeah. In flight school, did you know if you were going to go, fast, or did you get fast movers, or do you not find out till the end? How was it back then?
Yeah, so pretty much you don't find out to the end. But like I said, I didn't have a plan B and stuff. So this either had to work out, or I didn't know what else I was going to do. And I don't know what I would have done if I got to the end. And, there are plenty of great pilots out there flying C-130s and C-5s and KC-135s and all that stuff. But it wasn't for me and stuff. But fortunately, did well enough. Got the plane of my choice, which was the F-16, and then off to the races, man.
So you don't know whenever you go into, you don't know what plane you're going to get at the end?
You don't know until the end.
Okay.
So
you could get placed.
A C-130 or a C-5 is a massive slow airplane. Yep. C-130 is smaller. It's, has propped engine.
So through the school, like you just train on all of them?
No, so you fly two different airplanes in pilot training. So back in the day, they fly different airplanes now. So we flew the T-37, which was sort of a side-by-side little jet airplane, kind of a little bit bigger than a Cessna, but had jet engines on it. You do that for 6 months, and then provided you're doing well enough, you go to the T-38, which looks like a fighter jet.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with like the F-5 and stuff like that, same type of body style and stuff. And then that's when things get really, really fun. And that's when the class really starts to separate.
I gotcha.
And how do they pick who gets the jets and who gets the C-5s?
Based upon how well you do, how well you place in your class. Mm-hmm. Solely based upon that. So it is competitive all the way through. Yeah. So how well you do and stuff like that depends on, where you're going to go from there.
Towards the end, did you know that you're going to be in the fast planes?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Did you guys do peer evals back then?
Nah, there wasn't really peer evals. You got evaluated all the time. It was a daily thing from your instructors and stuff like that. But the cool thing with the bros and stuff like that, you were really rooting each other on and stuff. Everybody helped everybody, and it was always, our motto was cooperate to graduate and stuff, because it was tough. It was like, college. Obviously with a 2.75 GPA, I wasn't spending a whole lot of time in the books, but you didn't have a choice when you got there and stuff. They hand you a massive stack that needs to be memorized, and that was a discipline in and of itself. But it was way more fun. We could do it, with a group of bros.
What was the difference in like the cutoff of, like, I don't know how many guys, I mean, just for numbers, like, 5 guys get, fast planes, and the bottom 5 guys get to slow planes. Like, what was that difference between like 5 and 6?
It really depended, right? It depended upon the needs of the Air Force at the time. So sometimes, a lot of classes were really lucky and they got a big drop of fighters,
Sure.
but it was cyclical, right? And then they go, okay, well, the heavy movers or the heavy drivers, are short on pilots and stuff like that. So there would be much more. So it is really situationally dependent.
Gotcha.
So after flight school, where'd you get stationed at? And what year was that?
So I graduated from pilot training in May of 91. And then from there, I went to Luke Air Force Base. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I went down to Alamogordo, New Mexico, what was called fighter lead-in training. So that's when you went from the T-38 in pilot training to what was called the AT-38. The only difference between the two planes was the AT-38 could drop bombs, and this was really a fighter pilot 101 class. Okay, this was where they go, okay, here's all the stuff that we need you to forget from pilot training, and we're going to start teaching you how to be fighter pilots. We're going to take it from just simply learning how to fly an airplane to deploy it as an instrumental war. And that's a pretty short course. It was only about 3 months. And then things got really fun. That's when I left there, went to Luke Air Force Base, which is in Arizona, and spent 7 months there training in the F-16.
What was the hardest transition point going from the one you were flying in the previous course to the F-16?
I think the hardest transition was actually from pilot training to AT-38s because it was intentionally kind of a pretty hostile environment and stuff like that. So it was more mental. Everybody there could fly the airplane and stuff like that. I just remember day one of showing up there that we have all kinds of stupid fighter pilot rules. Like fighter pilot, you don't carry a briefcase, right? And so we had all these guys show up day one, and they had, back in the day, they had these big, ugly plastic briefcases that when they issued you all your flight pups and stuff, that's what you put it in. Now, being a son of a fighter pilot, I knew better than to show up with that. So I had like a backpack with all my stuff. But day one, the instructor walks in, he sees all the guys with their briefcases. He opens up these double doors next to the briefing room and just starts tossing their briefcases out in the parking lot, and they're breaking open. All their pubs are flying everywhere and stuff like that. And so that was a little bit weird at first. Then when you got to F-16 training, it was pretty adult at that point. So, you had earned your way there. The instructors, respected the fact that you were there and stuff like that, and they just wanted to make you good.
Got it. What was fighter pilot life like pre 9/11?
Yeah, so pre 9/11, so, you can probably do the math there. So when I was in pilot training is when the first Gulf War kicked off, right? And so pretty soon after that, we established both the southern and no-fly zones. So pre 9/11, I was my first duty station after finishing up F-16 training was in Misawa Air Base, Japan. So we were doing a lot of stuff in reference to North Korea, Russia, that type of stuff. And then we ended up actually catching a rotation in 1996 to deploy to Saudi to enforce the southern no-fly zone in Iraq. So it was definitely different than the post 9/11 war in Iraq and Afghanistan. For sure. But it was kind of its own unique kind of skill set and stuff back then, because you're still doing a combination of a lot of Cold War training and those type of things, and a combination with really getting beefed up in close air support. And then, transitioning after 9/11, it was, the rest of my career was all close air support.
Mm-hmm. What did anything go kinetic pre 9/11?
Nothing for me went kinetic. We did have guys go kinetic
What's
prior
that mean?
to
Dropping bombs,
okay.
shooting guns.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we did go pre-kinetic. We did go kinetic pre 9/11. I did not, and it wasn't frequent. It was mostly just a cat and mouse game. With the Iraqi MiGs kind of pushing the no-fly zone, and we'd roll in, then they'd roll back across the no-fly zone, and that type of stuff. And occasional AAA and getting SAM shot at. There was a couple of occasions in northern Iraq when I was based out of Turkey, where we'd go out and take out some comm facilities and stuff like that. But nothing that was a real big deal.
Just playing cat and mouse in a fighter jet. It's got to be a blast.
So, I was thinking, did you
just flying around?
I mean, I'm all about it. I'd ride with you just to experience it, right? If that was,
Top Gun was my favorite movie growing up. So like, I mean, fighter pilots are.
Define cat and mouse a little bit for us.
Yeah, so cat and mouse. So, the Iraqis knew, we were not going to shoot across the no-fly zone, right? They were going to have to penetrate the no-fly zone south, obviously get a positive ID on them. If they stayed across the line, then we would shoot them down. But they would just push it long enough. They knew, okay, we gotta turn around and boogie back and get across the safe zone here so we don't get shot and stuff, because they didn't stand a chance.
Were you playing a game of angles up there?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we would have, you'd have a 2-ship set up in one area, another 2-ship set up in another area. If they did come out, maybe the other 2-ship is closer. They were unaware of them and stuff like that. But they, they usually figured it out pretty quick. And
try to catch them slipping.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd like to move on to, post 9/11 and what that looked like for you.
Yeah. So post 9/11, it was crazy. So actually, just pre 9/11, I was in Kuwait, again, Southern no-fly zone, and we were there in September of 2001. I got home September 9th, 2001 from Kuwait.
Wow.
And stuff. And I remember sitting in our squadron bar. I was grabbing a cup of coffee and sitting there watching TV, and one of the other bros was like, man, this airplane hit the World Trade Center, and then we're sitting there, then another airplane hit. I'm like, that was intentional. And then, launched the next, 25 plus years in a global war on terrorism. And for us, like I said, a lot of close air support. My entire job as a fighter pilot during that time frame was, to make sure that, 18-year-old kid on the ground with a rifle came home.
So what was your deployment cycle like, throughout the next 20 years?
Yeah. So the next 20 years, so I was there in 02, 03, 05, 07, and then had a big gap and went back in 2013. Most of my combat deployments were in Iraq. In 2013, it was Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. What was your typical payload? And, were you going Winchester every single night? What was that? Any memorable moments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, lots of memorable moments. It was very, very cyclical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, it could be super quiet. Nothing was going on. If you were catching, night ops and stuff like that, especially if we were, working with the SEAL teams or Army Rangers or something like that, there was, a good chance of going kinetic at some point, especially if they were going through towns, kicking doors and stuff. And we were catching squirters coming out of buildings and taking them out and stuff like that. I think, some of the most kind of haunting stuff, because for me and Sam, I don't know if this was different for you. I don't know if you have time in both Iraq and Afghanistan, but the war in Afghanistan seemed way different than the war in Iraq.
Absolutely.
To me. I don't know if it was the time gap in there or what it might be. It's just Afghanistan just seemed wickedly more dangerous, right? At least for the guys on the ground and stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with Afghanistan, the southern half of Afghanistan is the Helmand province, okay, which is that's where they were running all the opium trade back and forth. And when I was there, I was flying like super early mornings. I'd take off at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And most of our missions were, like 6 to 9 hours, something like that. And I was working with a group of special forces.
So that jet can go for 9 hours?
9 hours with about 7 different air refuelings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's multiple air refuelings that go across, when we're doing that.
Uh-huh.
And so everything's pretty prescribed. You go to a certain area of responsibility, you check in, and we were always checking in, especially the spec ops guys, they always had a JTAC embedded with them, a joint terminal attack controller. Those were the guys talking to us. Mm-hmm. And those were the guys that, could clear us hot. Here's the enemy. Here's the friendlies. Here's, they do what's called a 9-line, which is a, detailed description of where we need to put our bombs and the direction we need to come in. And stuff like that. But man, the Helmand province was the wild, wild west. So we were checking in. It was, thought it was going to be a pretty benign day. I check into the AOR. My wingman's getting low on gas, so I clear him off to go get gas. Check in with the JTAC, call sign Widow 1, and everything's cool. I get set up in an orbit about 22,000 feet, and I'm just doing a big circle in the sky over the top of them, keeping my targeting pod, which is like a big telephoto lens, and that's what we use to drop bombs and see the friendlies, ID the enemies, and that type of stuff. I mean, no shit, not 60 to 90 seconds after I cleared my wingman off, I see RPGs hit both sides of this building, and then the radios go crazy at that point. So obviously, you've got enemies, 2 different locations. It's in an urban area. Super difficult for me to pick out at 22,000 feet unless I can catch them firing, right? Guys on the ground can't see where they're at. So at this point, I'm pretty useless. You can't just go slinging 500-pound bombs into a city. Number one, I don't want to hurt or injure or kill any Americans. And on top of that, you don't want to create unnecessary collateral damage either. So we can't get eyeballs on them. Talking to the JTAC, at this point, you can tell that the situation is getting a little bit worse. Next words out of his voice is, we've got a couple of KIAs, which you never, ever want to hear. So this is going from what should be a routine op to now a rescue mission. Every time they key the mic, you can hear gunfire going out. You can hear gunfire clanging off the concrete walls. And so now my job is to, see if I can clear the area, get the gunfire to go away, and get rescue helos in there. The one thing that we can do in the F-16 is make a whole lot of noise. So I drop down from, 22,000 feet to very, very low, get the afterburner going.
Show of force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So show of force. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Coolest thing.
And when you do that, the enemy obviously looks at that, and it just, it is a very clear understanding that this fight is no longer fair. And
keep fucking around and find out.
Yeah, keep doing it and find out. So we're able to get the enemy fire to subside to a point where we can comfortably get helos in there. We start getting helos in there. And, this kid who's the JTAC, Widow 1, man, he is freaking stud. He stays on the radio the entire time. But, as he's talking to me, I can tell his breathing is labored, right? And what I didn't know is that he had taken 2 rounds, and he ended up dying while I was talking to him on the radio.
Oh, my God.
And which is just, it's, that's the other side of war, right? Mm-hmm. And if you do this long enough, you see it, you hear it, and that type of stuff. But, when I talk to people, when I do keynote speeches and stuff like that, I go, what's weird, in the moment, you sort of feel it, but you don't process it, right? Mm. It's just kind of, it's like, oh, shit, this sucks. I hate that this happened to this kid and stuff like that. But this is the first hour of an 8-hour mission, and I got to keep my head on straight because there's other people out there counting on me and stuff like that. And then there's plenty of time when you get back home to, process and deal with all that stuff. But that's always one of those ones that, there's others like it. There's, hundreds of stories and stuff like that, but it just, that one always just resonated with me, especially as a Gold Star kid, because I sat there and I knew, man, some parents are getting ready to get a knock on the door and stuff. Several parents are getting ready to get knocks on the doors, or wives or sisters or whoever. And that was a hard one to take.
Now, working in Helmand, I don't know if the British owned that province back then, but were you working with the British or the French or anybody back then?
Yeah, so it was a combination. So It was either Americans or Brits at the time. Yep.
Did you guys share rules of engagement, or were there clear, differences between what you were capable of and what they were capable of? Capable based on the rules of engagement.
Yeah, from what I remember back in the day, I think we operated all, under the same rules of engagement and stuff like that. I don't remember there being any differences, like there was anything in particular, like, hey, if you're going to this area and stuff like that, and, it's a British JTAC, and then there's different things and stuff like that. Sometimes with the Brits and the French, there were some challenges getting up on comms, especially secure comms and stuff like that, but that's the only thing I recall.
What's up, guys? Sam Mackey here. I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge has no doubt made me a more effective and efficient hunter. Spartan Forge was founded by former U.S. Special Operations Intelligence Officer Bill Thompson, who took his 21 years of military experience fighting the global war on terror and applied his learnings to his true love, whitetail hunting. My favorite feature on the Spartan Forge app is the LiDAR for finding draws and funnels. It also has an AI deer movement prediction tool, so you know when and where to go. It has historical wind plots for selecting stand locations, and Cyber Scout for just about anything else I need to know. Spartan Forge, a veteran-owned and operated American mapping and scouting company. Use promo code OUTSIDER20 to save 20% on a premium membership to Spartan Forge. That's OUTSIDER20, OUTSIDER20. What did you like more, Iraq or Afghanistan?
I'm going to be honest with you. I liked Afghanistan more.
Me too.
I mean, you're going over there, right? You're a warrior. You want to fight and stuff. And I felt like there we were fighting, right? And that every mission we made some small difference in the effort and stuff. And like I said, for us, for me, if I could, find a, either finding an IED, that was buried in the road, giving off a heat signature and warn a convoy, or, go kinetic and, and help troops in contact and get them out of there and stuff like that. All those were just those kind of small wins, because everybody there is like, at the end of the day, everyone wants to go home, right? You don't show there showing up not wanting to come home. And so there was just a special, I don't know, there's just something different about Afghanistan. It was just a different vibe that just felt really, really good.
Wild West. I liked it a lot more. I liked Baghdad, and Iraq, just because you're clearing a lot of buildings, and it's more of, I guess, what you picture in your mind as being a SEAL and doing SEAL, the SEAL job. But I liked Afghanistan just because it was just the Wild West.
I agree.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get, especially up in the mountains, right? Especially when we were on ops with you guys up in the mountains, and it was always something different. And then, for us as fighter pilots, the challenge there on the, on the Afghan-Paki border in the mountains and stuff like that was always the weather, right? Yep. And picking your way through thunderstorms, low altitude, doing all that type of stuff. I mean, that's what you train for. I mean, it was just super cool.
Now, I do have one more question in regards to how much, where your eyes are at primarily, especially when you have troops in contact and you have your sensor. Are you watching your sensor? Are you watching your controls? Or are you looking out the window?
But so it's a combination of both, right? So, you would go from big to small. So big picture wise, and we had maps and stuff like that. So, I'm looking outside, and, JTAC would always go, hey, do you see the 3-story building on the northwest corner of town? You're like contact and stuff. And so you get the big picture outside, and then I would trade, kind of looking back inside at the targeting pod and going, okay, getting it on the big building. Okay, hey, friendlies are 300 meters northeast, and such and such, there's a pickup truck parked outside. Okay, yeah, copy, friendlies. All right, enemies are such and such far away. Once you get to that point and you have that fidelity, so we could see through the targeting pod, obviously the cursors are on top of what we want to drop on, not on top of friendlies. And then we also had a joint helmet mounted queuing system. So whatever my targeting pod was looking at, my helmet was looking at too. So then I could look outside and go, yep, the thing is on the correct thing. And so I'm confident now that when I drop back out and the JTAC clears me hot, that I'm dropping bombs where they need to be.
Interesting. I didn't know your helmet had that, that screen as well. I guess I should have known that, but I didn't.
And that it wasn't always that way, right? So that was maybe my first combat tour. So that came on later in my career.
Okay.
And so that hadn't been around for a long time.
And sorry for all the pilot questions. I just very, very curious. And because the only time I ever talked to pilots was at the O Club in Fallon, And it's like, but for contingencies, did you guys ever go over landing on an aircraft carrier?
No, the F-16, we could not land it on an aircraft carrier. It doesn't have beefy enough gear or a beefy enough hook to land on a carrier.
Didn't even know if that was a possibility.
No, not at all.
It's not.
Clear. So, did you grow up hunting?
I did not. I grew up wanting to hunt, right?
Yeah.
So I probably started hunting, let me see, probably call it, I'm 58 now, so probably early 30s, somewhere around in there. And I just wanted to just kind of go figure it out, right? So, I just started buying all the things, and I had a couple of bros that hunted and stuff like that. So they kind of took me with them and everything. But really, then I started getting into outdoor TV and stuff. And you guys are probably familiar with who Michael Waddell is in the Bone Collector team and stuff. Waddy has become a really, really good friend of mine. So I was watching him back in the day on Realtree road trips and stuff like that. So basically, if Waddy had it, I bought it and stuff. And I have literally made every stupid mistake, every dumb thing that you can do in hunting, I've done it. So I could write a book, I could teach a master's class on it and stuff. But it was a really fun way to learn. But I was able to pass it on to my kids and ended up getting good at it and stuff. And now got my own ranch, got my own place, walk out my back door, jump in my Polaris, and go to a deer stand and stuff. So times have changed since when I first started. And I have discovered that the most dangerous place in the world, even more dangerous in the Helmand province, is public land in Oklahoma on opening. Don't go there.
Just lead flying everywhere, huh?
Oh my God! It is almost
orange.
like they're lining up like British troops, like marching through the woods, man, just firing at anything that moves.
So you started hunting while you were still a pilot, right?
I did.
Correct? Yeah. And how did that help you? I'm going to say mentally, like after a deployment, hopefully you weren't deployed during hunting season, because that's one thing, I try to, preach and teach as much as I can is tree stand therapy, because it's freaking real, man.
Oh, it is real. I mean, here's things that you just can't duplicate sitting inside, right? You can't duplicate, getting up in a tree stand in the dark, especially, obviously first thing in the morning and stuff, getting on your gear put up and just sitting there in dead silence and listening to the woods come alive, right? I mean, if you want to go, however you view God and who that is and everything else, if there's a place I find him, it's there. It's where you can just clear your mind, just think about whatever you need to think about and just put all the stuff in your past away. And it's just a way that is just, the purest form of, for me, what it means to be a man and stuff like that. I mean, I think about, all the way back to, when we won the West and stuff like that. I mean, man, they were hunting for their food. They were providing themselves shelter and doing all that other stuff. And in a small way, you kind of interconnect with that in a super, just really cool, not in a weird spiritual way, but it is spiritual in a sense.
Absolutely. Did you kill that hoss of a deer over your right shoulder on your farm?
I did. No. So this was not on my farm. So this was on a deer lease that I had in the same county that I live in now. So yeah, that was a fun one. That was actually a rifle kill. And that was the third day of rifle season. I remember being so mad. I wasn't mad. I shouldn't say that. My wife's going to kill me if I say this. I want to tell you, but my son, who was a lacrosse player, he played lacrosse in high school and college and stuff like that. And he had a tournament that weekend, so I had to miss the opening day. But when I got back, it was literally unbelievably perfect day. No wind, cold, everything else. Jumped in the stand, hit the rattles one time. This dude comes busting out of the woods into the field, stands broadside at 100 yards and looks the other direction. I'm like, you can't make this up.
Clean living.
No, he's a tank.
I want to tell myself that's just good living, but I know that ain't it. And stuff. That's just one of those ones where you just go, all right, that was a slow pitch from God there. It's like, man, you can't screw this one up. So
it happens from time to time.
Yeah.
What'd he score?
He's 172.
Yeah. Who wide?
2 inches. Made it. Hell yeah. Good job. Do you get buck fever?
So, yes. But it always happens at the weirdest times, right? When I say buck fever, there's been times where, it depends upon the scenario. Like if I'm sitting there and I have to wait for them like 120 yards to get to my stand and you're staring at them the entire time, the more I'm staring at them, the worse it gets, right? And you're just sitting there and like, man, like what is wrong with you right now? You just play combat and everything else. I've gotten the same way shooting a doe before too, because you're just sitting there but I kind of like it and stuff too, because, especially as a hunter, at the end of the day, you're a conservationist as well too. And, we need to take seriously when you take a life and stuff. And, that's going to be food on my table and I'm going to respect the animal and all that other stuff. And, always, the end goal is to make a, one of two decisions: a good ethical kill shot, or don't shoot.
I get it. I get it bad, and I get it. I'm the opposite, actually. If I can watch them for longer, it subsides. But when I first see the deer, if it's a doe, decide, okay, I'm going to take a doe, that's when I get it. And if I see a nice buck, as soon as I see it, I think I'll be less nervous if someone broke in my house in the middle of the night. And my heart just jumps like I saw a ghost, and I just lose it. And I have to take deep breaths. I have to calm myself. I have to go through a whole mental process just to lift my gun up. You know what I mean?
I get the worst filming.
When
I'm filming for Samantha and my kids and stuff, like I look back at it, I'm like shaking because I want it to go well so badly. And I'm like, shoot it. But I'm like, the film's like just all over the map.
That's how I was. We had some Gold Star wives out to Jay's place. We have them out once a year for a deer hunt. And this gal, Rebecca, she was real pregnant and about to shoot a doe. And it was a real slow morning. Then finally a nice doe walks out, and then it's walking away, and I stop it at 55 yards. But I'm trying to laze it as the deer is walking away like 30 yards, 35 yards. And I'm having trouble keeping my hand steady so I can laze the freaking deer because I was shaking so bad. I feel you on that one, man. So what's your favorite animal to hunt?
So my favorite animal lately, I think it will, whitetail needs to top the list all the time just because of the accessibility for me.
Yep.
But here about 4 years ago, I started going out west with Waddell on an elk hunt. So we go out to Utah. In fact, I'll be with him again in September. And man, I tell you what, mid-September, rut, elk hunting with a bow, man, nothing is better than that. It is so surreal, to have, this massive animal just screaming its head off 30, 40 yards away from you is unbelievable. So I would say as far as like excitement and intensity and like what I get really worked up about doing would be that.
That's Jay's favorite thing, hand down.
100% agree. I mean, fun a lot of things. I mean, I'm going to Africa for the first time in July, so that's going to be different. But turkey and whitetail and elk and bears. Elk is by far my favorite. Like you said, like I've got a place in Montana, and go out there mid-September, and you get one to come 10 yards from you, screaming in your face. I mean, there's nothing like it in my mind.
But there's nothing like it, and it is my favorite meat.
By far.
It is. I mean, you eat that, it's actually hard to go back to whitetail.
I don't even eat whitetail anymore, honestly. I mean, we have usually a couple elk every year, and that kind of takes us to the whole year. But whitetail, I mean, we use some ground stuff for tacos and whatnot, but I don't eat a lot of whitetail anymore.
I think I ate a few of your whitetail deer this year, but yeah. I was fortunate enough to go out to his place last year and shoot a elk, and my family, we're almost done with it. And we're a family of 5, and my kids my daughter wanted elk steak for her birthday dinner.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal in my eyes. Do you have hogs on your place out there?
No, we are very fortunate that we don't have hogs. And where my place is set up, we're in Osage County, if that means anything to you, but it's kind of the hill country in Oklahoma and stuff as far as many hills as there are here. But the way my property is set up, if you go further east of my property, it drops down into a valley, and there's a lot of ranchers down there who plant a lot of winter wheat. So the hogs tend to stay down there, which is nice. I've seen them on my property, but it's just like one running through or something like that, but never to this date, knock on wood, have not had a problem with them.
I know they are hard on land and nobody likes them, but man, do I love shooting them.
Oh my God. Yeah. They're the best. I mean, I can remember this was a deer lease I had. This is probably over a decade ago. I was out there with my son. He was probably, 11, 12 at the time, and we were bow hunting. And he texts me. He goes, "Dad, there's a hog here. Can I shoot it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure thing." And he texts me back. He goes, "Yeah, I killed it." And I'm like going, okay. And then he texts me back again. He goes, Dad, it's making a lot of noise. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if you hit him, he told me where. I said, he's going to die. He's fine. He goes, I'm going to shoot it again. I'm like, no, don't shoot it again. So he shot it again. By the time I got to him that evening, he had emptied his entire quiver of arrows into this hog. And I'm looking at him because most of the time with hogs, especially where we were at, we did have a hog problem out there. I would just take them and just kind of like gut them and leave them and stuff for the coyotes and stuff, especially a big one like that. The smaller ones we would take. But I was like, nope, we're going to learn a hard lesson here, buddy. So grabbed the other side of him. We drug him out and I made him field dress him and all that other stuff. But we were laughing the entire time. It was fun. But there's nothing more disgusting than cleaning a 250, 300-pound hog. They're the worst.
I've done it quite a bit. I don't mind it all that much, but
I don't like messing with them.
I'll eat them too. It doesn't bother me. I just make pulled pork out of them, you know.
Exactly.
And it's turned out well for me. My family likes it. But so 30 years in the Air Force. How did you get involved with Folds of Honor?
Yeah, so our CEO and founder, Dan Rooney, so he and I flew F-16s together. So I knew him way back before Folds of Honor started. And in fact, I remember back, this would have been the 2006, 2007 timeframe and stuff when he was starting to talk about the nonprofit and we're both in at the time. And I was like, dude, that's an amazing idea. That's a big idea. And he wanted to go do, but I mean, turned it into, starting it above his garage. And, here we are, 62,000 scholarships and $300 million later out the door is just unbelievable.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So he starts it, and then are you guys on the same timeline in your careers, or did he retire before you?
No, so he is still in the Guard.
Oh, really? Okay.
He's not flying anymore. So now I was probably, coming a good 6-7 years ahead of him. I'm a little bit older than he is, and stuff. And so he leaves the military for a while to go get this thing going, ends up coming back in the military after he gets it going and stuff. And it's just been just a fun rocket ship. I've been with the organization now coming up on 7 years now. And just the growth that we've experienced in the past 7 years is really, really cool.
Would you mind just, telling us your version of what Folds of Honor is and who you guys help and how you go about doing that?
Absolutely. So, number one, we're in the education business. So we provide educational scholarships to the spouses and kids of both military members and first responders who have either been killed or disabled. And a lot of people ask, why education, right? And for us, number one, for Dan, his hero, who was his dad, who we lost here recently, was a professor for 40 years, right? So Dan obviously has an inclination towards that type of stuff. But it's the one area, in taking care of these families where it's not a handout, it's a hand up. It's kind of the old proverb of teaching people how to fish, right? And you give them something, you give them a tool that they can go on and create and do better things. And, some of the fun stories out there, we had this one kid, I'm trying to recall his name. I'll grab it here in a second. But he lost his dad to a brain tumor that was, related to stuff he had been exposed to in the military and stuff like that. This kid went on to become a neurological surgeon.
Wow.
I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
There's this one young lady whose dad had been, severely injured in a parachuting accident and stuff like that, was bedridden for an entire year. And she came in and played music for him every single day, right? Up until the day he passed away. She went on to get her degree in music therapy and is now working in the exact same hospital where her dad passed away and ministering to the exact same types of patients that her dad was.
Is she in Bethesda?
She is not in Bethesda. I can't remember the name of the hospital that she's at, but I know it's not there. But it is just like that type of stuff when you start hearing those stories. And what's really fun with these families is this. I mean, the education and, providing them scholarship money and stuff, of course, they're thankful for, and it's awesome. But the coolest thing with them is, thank you that we are still seen and still heard, right? And, being in the military, and Sam, I know you can relate to this, is that, especially like after my dad died, I mean, everybody's there for you, right? For 3 months. And then it gets quiet afterwards, right? And now, here's my mom at 38 years old. This was not the script she wrote for her life to, be a single mother of three and trying to figure life out and stuff like that. But now to have an organization whose sole purpose is the families and just go, listen, we're not going to forget you. We're not going to leave you behind. And we're going to be there for you to help you achieve whatever educational dream you might want to achieve, whether that's to become an electrician, a plumber, a pilot, a scientist, whatever it might be. We want to be there to support you.
That's phenomenal.
Do you guys have like full-on counselors and everything under your umbrella?
So we have an entire team. We have our scholarship division, and their entire job is to work hand in hand with these families during our application process to make sure they, get all the correct paperwork turned in and everything else. So we go to the nth degree there. We do provide services through an outside agency for our recipients who may need some mental health support and stuff if they're going through some things and everything else. And as far as counselors and stuff like that, we really count on the schools as far, for them to provide those services and stuff. We do that in concert with them.
Have you guys hired anyone that you sent to school yet?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. And that's when things come full circle, right? It's super fun having them on board and stuff because they have, especially as a fundraiser, because they come with the fundraising business, two things are undefeated, and that's relationship and authenticity, right? And the authenticity of having, obviously with somebody like, my background or, my boss's background, but especially a recipient, somebody who like, hey, you guys put me through school. I want to pay it forward now. And I'm going to go out and tell donors my story, tell the story about my mom, my dad, and, whatever their story is just really super authentic and real.
It's amazing. Have you guys done any fundraising and or events in the hunting space?
Yeah, we have. So we do. We have several partners in outdoor corporate America, and there's no way I can list them all right here. But some of the bigger ones that you'll recognize, Yeti was probably the first one on board. They've been absolutely amazing. And then you've got, I'll just name some categories. And you've got in the ammunition space, you've got Winchester, hunting clothing. We've got Sitka. In, like the bow space, we've got Hoyt, Bowtech, and Darton, and there's probably a list of another 50 companies out there. But one of the funnest things that we've done as far as outdoor events is I put together auction hunts and or auction sweepstake hunts. And so we partner with actually it's a local company here in Tulsa called Outdoor Solutions, and their whole thing is field to table. So they partner with other outfitters and they take you. In fact, we have one coming up in September in Montana. It's a pronghorn antelope hunt. And so they provide everything. So it's really cool, like for somebody who's never hunted. So they go out there, they provide the firearms, they teach you how to shoot, they take you out. You kill the animal, they teach you how to field dress, quarter it out, then come back in and completely process it, teach you how to cook it and do stuff like that. And it's been really fun to watch because a lot of guys who are typically buying, a golf foursome to some fancy country club and stuff like that, go, man, I'll give that a try. And they have a blast.
Sure.
They come back and they talk about it. Just what it's like at deer camp in the evening, sitting around having a whiskey or beer or something like that and just, telling stories and everything else. It's just super, super fun. And some of the bigger ones that we've done, I've done with Michael Waddell and auctioned an elk hunt with him. Has been super fun. And the other thing that we're doing is we've started partnering with a lot of the conservation foundations, so like the Mule Deer Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. And what we found, man, there's just some really cool synergy between the two organizations because people are passionate about conservation, appropriate conservation, right, and stuff. And a lot of, Americans don't understand that hunters are the conservation effort in this country, right? And, every dollar we spend, somebody is supporting it, right? Somebody is supporting conservation, whether you're buying stuff at Bass Pro or you're buying your tags or whatever it might be. So we thought it was just like a beautiful connection there. Like, man, combine freedom and conservation. Those two things go hand in hand in this country and stuff. And so that's worked out really well. So the Mule Deer Foundation has allowed me the past 2 years to auction a elk hunt with my good friend Jana Waller with Skullbound Chronicles and stuff in combination with Julie McQueen with Carbon TV. And so we're partnering with Carbon TV, the Outdoor Sportsman's Group, with the Sportsman's Channel and the Outdoor Channel and stuff like that. So been at this about 3 years, and it's just really taken off in the community. It's just really, really rewarding to see. And for guys like us who like to hunt, man, if you can combine your passion and fundraising and doing good, why not?
It's a win-win.
Absolutely. Yep. Do you guys ever do anything with, any of these hunts with the recipients of the scholarships?
So we have not yet, but we have a ton of people who have offered, right? And through the Mule Deer Foundation, especially, we have a lot of people they'll just buy hunts to buy them, and stuff, and want to donate them to our recipients. Now the challenge is for us to find a pool of recipients that actually want to go do that and stuff. So we're in the process of doing that. But yeah, that is just some amazing, really cool storytelling.
Oh, it's the absolute best by a long shot. So what else can you tell us about Folds of Honor that is, noteworthy? Where can we find you and everything like that? Where can folks go to donate? We want to plaster this all over, our social media and website and everything like that to give you guys as much juice as humanly possible.
That's awesome. So I'll hit on a couple of things here, if that's okay. So
of course,
the easiest way to support us is go to foldsofhonor.org, click on that donate tab, and commit to $13 a month. We commit to $13 a month, and you become a wingman, right? So everybody knows what a wingman is and stuff, and that's somebody who never leaves you, who's going to support you. And a lot of your audience may go, hey, why $13 a month? Well, you can probably see this folded flag on my hat right here. It takes exactly 13 folds to bring it to that iconic triangle shape of freedom and stuff. So the number is wickedly important here.
Yep.
So there's some significance behind it. And a lot of people sometimes think, well, it's just $13 a month. Does that really make a difference? Can you imagine if 1 million people were giving us $13 a month? It means something, right? And plus, on top of that, we get you engaged. We got an entry level point for anybody who wants to do anything, right? If you want to volunteer, if you want to donate, whatever it might be, but foldsofhonor.org. And go there. Some super exciting stuff that's happening in the world of Folds of Honor is this. I know for you guys and your audience, everybody knows when Veterans Day is, right? November 11th. Okay. You know what day nobody knows about? First Responder Day. Nobody knows the date. It's October 28th, right? Okay. And so first responders, in terms of the history of the Folds is relatively new. So we're in our 3rd year supporting these families. But if you can remember all the way back to 2020, and I'm not shy of mentioning this and stuff, right? I mean, the sheer amount of just, law enforcement hatred that was going on in this country and stuff like that.
All the defunding.
Defunding the police. It was just epically out of place, right?
Yep.
And for us here at the Folds, and for us, there's a family behind every badge, right? There's a mom and a dad. There's a wife. There's a husband. There's kids. There's something there. So, these people don't just live in a vacuum. And so, when we talked about it a few years ago, it's like, this is absolutely the right thing to do. So we want to make October 28th as recognizable as November 11th, right? These folks deserve it. Every 6 seconds in this country, somebody dials 911, right? And, when that law enforcement officer or that EMT or that firefighter shows up at your door, they don't care about your religion. They don't care about the color of your skin, and they don't care about your politics. They're just coming to help, okay? And so we want the country to recognize them just as we've recognized, rightfully our military. And the way to do that is to celebrate and make it a national holiday. So we're going to have big fundraising efforts around that. One of our, longest, most generous partner out there is Anheuser-Busch. Bud Light has taken us to the NFL. In week 8 of the NFL will be a Folds of Honor takeover. We are going to celebrate first responders. I know you guys probably remember what happened to Damar Hamlin, on the field, and he was saved by first responders. And as the NFL looked out there, for nonprofits in this space and stuff like that, there really wasn't anything for first responders, especially not families and stuff like that. So this has been a really beautiful marriage. We're super excited about it. We're going to make a lot of noise in a good way. We're going to celebrate these families. Celebrate your country and support us by, buying a Bud Light and drinking it. Every Bud Light can and Budweiser can is going to have a Folds of Honor logo on it. And,
wow, that's awesome.
Doesn't get much cooler than that, right?
Yeah, no kidding. That's super cool.
And so let us know how we can support. We'll be in contact. And my partner knows a couple people in the NFL too.
I
So,
I'll drink a Bud Light too.
yeah. So, and thanks for coming on, and thanks for
Yeah,
all the good stuff
pleasure.
you guys are doing for, first responders and veterans and Gold Star families. And it means the world. You guys are the freaking best, man. Anything we could do to support, just let us know.
No, man, I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on with both of you. It's always fun doing these type of things, especially when there's, sort of an outdoor hunting focus and stuff related to this. But I will definitely stay in touch with you guys, keep you updated, and let you know how.
We'd love to help. Like Sam said, I mean, you guys are doing amazing, cool stuff, and we'd love to, if we could help in any way, be a part of it.
Love it. Thank you both very much.